It is the sixth model of the Neon Genesis Evangelion collaboration of 2023. It is EVM05, 10th Angel, with a kit of Perfect Guard, Terminate, Armor Drain, Float Legs, and the leg ability of Mascot, which debuffs enemy power and success when attacked. Now, as the final model of the Evangelion collaboration set, this model is instead not posing as a protagonist unit in the series, but instead posing as a series antagonist, which are the Angels. And with that is packing a certainly very dangerous skill set, even though somewhat more on the defense-oriented side. If used correctly, can make itself an absolute menace to society and a major headache on the enemy team. Perfect Guard is a defense-based skill and arguably one of the best there is in my personal opinion, as that means that while on the line, the 10th Angel will be intercepting all blows and nullify 2 of them at 0 damage. Of course, that means if anyone's using Destroy, it will bypass this, or if anyone is using, say, Through Shot or Through Fight or Stealth, they will bypass it entirely, but in all of the situations, Perfect Guard will nullify 2 full hits for all allies on your side of the team. Terminate is a brand new skill being introduced to the game, and even though it looks rather weird at first glance, it is honestly a lot easier than you think to master. And it's simply put as simple as how Destroy behaved in the olden days, which means if you target a foe and you successfully strike them in the back, which means they have to be in their cooldown phase, whatever part targeted is guaranteed broken. Now, it's not currently known, based on explanations, if this means it has to correctly target a part in cooldown, or it just breaks whatever it touches as long as the enemy target is in cooldown. But it will be very interesting to see, and I do see this as a very notably easier version of Destroy to use, in comparison to, say, Disaster with Unit 02, or even just basic Destroy, which is very largely a gambling-based move, and usually can never really tell how to use it properly unless the cards just kind of fall in your lap in your favor. Armor Drain is a relatively new skill that we've only seen once before thus far, but simply explained, upon attacking a target, it will drain about 30% of whatever damage was dealt and restore that amount back to the user. So this will allow 10th Angel a way to keep itself particularly tanky whenever it's not using Terminate to spitefully destroy anyone that stands in its way. And that's also not assuming that it chooses to stand on the line and intercept any incoming blows for itself or its allies. Float Legs means that 10th Angel will have very good coverage across all terrains at A rank across the board, and of course S rank on Cyber, which everybody gets, but the stats are certainly nothing to sneeze at either. With a mobility of 824, definitely packing the high-end speed you really don't see too often on float type legs. But in comparison to, say, Artemis or Spinag, which have very powerful leg abilities, Mascot is at least something that's very tolerable to work with if it's something on the enemy side. An evade of 1225 means it will have a relatively decent time being able to dodge or graze any low success attacks and keep damage on the minimum. And on the topic of low damage, with a melee resist of 1358 and a shoot resist of 1096, definitely going to be holding its own moderately well in the damage reduction department. And it is also worth noting with these two stats that these are also the base stats, which means across the board you will be adding another, say, 10% or so, depending on what terrain you're on, to kind of make sure that it stays particularly healthy. And in terms of a defender, having a very high armor pool also comes part and parcel and fully expected. With a head HP of 4650 and arms at about 4500 each, legs at about 3640, definitely a very high HP pool as expected of a defender. So it will have a very solid time keeping damage minimum pretty much across the board in any situation, especially since Perfect Guard can negate up to 2 blows, and Armor Drain can keep itself very healthy by stealing HP from enemies. As a pure set score, I do honestly have to rate 10th Angel pretty solid 7 out of 10. It's a skill you can make, it's a bot you can make use of very easily and relatively versatilely as a melee interruption-based fighter, or even as a dedicated defender for the first 4 turns as denoted by its head uses, if you choose to make use of such. Very solid skills as well between Terminate, which is, again, just a much easier version of Destroy, and Armor Drain for keeping itself healthy. Float Legs, generally something you can never ever go wrong with using. Really not a lot of issues in particular with its synergy either, as even though it has a defense skill and two completely separate melee skills, it is something that can kind of hold its own decently well without anyone really needing to support or assist it. As mixed parts, I do have to rate it a little higher at an 8 out of 10. Perfect Guard, especially a non-heavy variant at that, is something you really can't ever go wrong with using on any team that needs it. Terminate, I'm interested to see how that will shake up the meta once it does go live, especially once we get to see for sure what exactly that skill entails and how exactly it works. Armor Drain, of course, if you do decide to use that for keeping yourself particularly healthy, even if it only takes up to 30% when attacking. Float Legs with Mascot just means that upon being attacked, it will progressively make the enemy deal less damage over time, as you are considerably debuffing them every time they hit you. So as long as you can keep yourself particularly healthy and without breaking or dying, as long as these legs stay intact, the enemy will be getting progressively weaker every time they try to take you out. Now, as a final comment, much like all other models of the collaboration thus far, 10th Angel also is considered gender N, which means you can use its parts on either male or female tin pets freely and interchangeably, just in case of whatever kind of fight you need to fulfill.